Hey guys, it's Marshall Mathers IV here, back to you today with another video. And in today's video, this will be a video today about the fact that I really wish and do believe that Eminem should have released his Marshall Mathers LP2 album on April 23 of 2012 when he would have been only 39 years old instead of when he actually did release it, which was on November 5 of 2013 at the age of 41. And you know, when it comes to any of Eminem's albums that he has ever released in the history of his rap career, his Marshall Mathers LP2 album is probably one of the best and most perfect examples of an album of his that he made and released that definitely should have been released earlier. Because think about it. His first Marshall Mathers LP album came out way back on May 23 of 2000 at the age of just 27 years old, while he was in his 20s, even though it should have been released on March 23 of 2000, and he should have been able to release the two unreleased Marshall Mathers LP songs, being Mom, which would have included the skit before that song, and especially Dear Ronnie, which Ronnie's family should have allowed and given Eminem permission to have released. And then his Marshall Mathers LP album would have then have been brought to 21 tracks instead of a lame, lousy 18. And then he also should have released a deluxe edition for his Marshall Mathers LP album, including the songs Our House featuring Fred Durst, The Kids, and Angry Blonde, which is also another scrapped, unreleased throwaway Marshall Mathers LP Eminem song. But, you know, I just find it so shocking that Eminem released his first Marshall Mathers LP album in the year 2000 during the time when he was 27 years old, in his 20s, and then he waited until he was 41 years old on November 5 of 2013 to release his Marshall Mathers LP2 album, which is obviously a sequel to his Marshall Mathers LP album. But he waited until he was in his fucking 40s when he released that album of his fucking 40s. I mean, in my opinion and point of view, I think that album of his, at the very possible latest, should have came out and have been released on April 23 in the year 2012, when he would have only been 39 years old. During the time, he would have still been in his fucking 30s and not even in his 40s yet. And you know what I also wish would have been different about that album of his is the fact that on his song Bad Guy, which is the opening song, or track in other words, on his Marshall Mathers LP2 album, that he would have gotten back Dido, who did the hook or chorus on the song and for the music video Stan on Eminem's first Marshall Mathers LP album in the year 2000. So it would have made the most logical sense and would have just been so awesome if Eminem would have somehow, some way, gotten Dido to have come back to do the hook or chorus, in other words, for the song Bad Guy. And not just that, but if Eminem would have also got the guy who played Matthew Mitchell in the Stan music video. I mean, there was obviously Stan, but then there was a kid who played his brother, his younger brother, his little brother in the Stan music video, who was supposed to be Matthew Mitchell. And Bad Guy is supposed to be, obviously, a sequel song to Eminem's song Stan, and Bad Guy is supposed to be a song where Matthew Mitchell, all grown up, of course, around maybe 17 or 18 years old, takes his revenge on Eminem, and I think goes over the same bridge that Stan and his girlfriend go over in the Stan music video, and both die after both going over. And Matthew Mitchell, to get his revenge, I mean, you can at least hear it acting out in the song, even though there was sadly never a music video made for that song, which is honestly fucked up, especially considering that the Stan song had and included a music video to it, but the sequel song, Bad Guy, doesn't. It doesn't even get a music video, which to me doesn't make any sense at all. And, you know, it not only pisses me the fuck off that Eminem didn't get Dido to return to do the hook or chorus for the song Bad Guy, which, again, would have just been awesome and amazing if he would have been able to do that. And also, if he would have made and released a music video to that song and have actually got the kid who played Matthew Mitchell in the Stan music video from Eminem's Marshall Mathers LP album in the year 2000. Like, if he had actually got whoever the guy was or whatever his name was who played Matthew Mitchell as a kid, of course, because he was actually a kid at the time in the year 2000 in the Stan music video, and he would have been around 17, 18 years old if Eminem had released his Marshall Mathers LP2 album, when I personally would have much rather preferred him to release it on exactly and specifically April 23 of 2012, when Eminem would have only been 39 years old and not even in his fucking 40s yet. And, I mean, at that time, the guy who played Matthew Mitchell would have been around 17, almost 18 years old. In 2013, he would have been 18. But in the year 2012, he would have turned 18 years old. I just don't know when that guy's birthday is, like what month or day his birthday is, because I don't even know the guy's name who even played the kid in the Stan music video from Eminem's Marshall Mathers LP album in the year 2000. I don't know who or what the guy's name was who played the kid version of Matthew Mitchell, and it would have just been so incredible and dope if, like I said, if Eminem would have been able to have gotten him, and he would have been around the age of 17 or even maybe 18 or almost 18 at least, if Eminem had released his Marshall Mathers LP2 album on April 23 of 2012 at the age of 39, which he definitely should have done, especially because of the fact that Eminem released his first Marshall Mathers LP album in the year 2000 during the time he was in his 20s at the age of 27 years old. But then he didn't release his Marshall Mathers LP2 album until 41 years old on November 5 of 2013, which pisses me the fuck off. And you know, that doesn't make any sense to me at all, because of the fact that he released his first Marshall Mathers LP album in his 20s. So he could have and should have at least, at the very minimum, released his sequel, Marshall Mathers LP2 album, while he would have still been in his 30s, at the age of 39 years old on April 23 of 2012. And plus, he didn't even release any solo albums in the year 2012 anyways. I mean, think about it. That would have been a great rap album of his to have released in the year 2012. And when I look at that album of his, when I listen to the songs that are off of Eminem's Marshall Mathers LP2 album, it just feels much more right if that album of his would have came out in the year 2012, not 2013. But not just any time in 2012, but exactly and specifically April 23 of 2012 at the very latest, at the age of just 39 years old. And he wouldn't have even been 40 years old yet, and he certainly would not have been 41 years old like he actually was when he released that album of his, unfortunately, on November 5 of 2013, which to me is just fucked up, because I honestly feel like he waited way too long to release an album of his, and you can't tell me otherwise. You cannot convince me otherwise about the fact that Eminem didn't take that long to release his Marshall Mathers LP2 album, that, in my personal opinion and point of view, should have been released and have came out during the time that Eminem would have still been in his 30s, even if it would have came out at the very last age that he would have been in his 30s, being obviously 39 years old on April 23 of 2012, that would have made me very happy. That would have made me so at peace and content and grateful, happy, and I would have been so excited and just so thrilled knowing that Eminem would have released his Marshall Mathers LP2 album on exactly April 23 of 2012, when he would have only been 39 years old. During the time, he would have still been in his 30s and not 40, and certainly not 41. Because I don't think he should have been any older than 39 years old when he released that specific album of his. But that's just my opinion and point of view. That's the way I feel. And, I don't see why any of you would disagree with me or say otherwise. Because, I just feel like being 40 and even 41 is just too old to still be dyeing his hair at. I mean, if he was going to dye his hair for that last album of his, which he did, if anything, I feel like and believe that he should have still been in his 30s. I mean, I don't see why that wouldn't make any sense. Honestly, he should have still been in his 30s. Even if it would have been 39, the age right before being 40, I mean, I just feel like it's weird for a 40 or 41-year-old man to dye his hair blonde again. I mean, that doesn't make any logical sense to me. I mean, to me, that's just too old to be doing that kind of shit anymore. But I guess that's just me and the way I feel. I'm sure other people would disagree, being most people probably. But, I mean, I make a lot of valid arguments here because, I mean, it's obviously a fact that he didn't release any albums of his in 2012. He didn't release any solo album at age 38 or even 39, which is really fucked up. And, I would not have wanted him to release an album at the age of 38 in 2011 anyways. But, his Marshall Mathers LP2 album, honestly, honest to God, should have came out and been released on April 23 of 2012, when he would have only been 39 years old. There is no saying otherwise. That year, I mean, honestly, in all seriousness, that year would have been just such a perfect, excellent year for his Marshall Mathers LP2 album to have came out and have been released. I don't see why anyone would say otherwise. And not just any time in 2012, and certainly not late 2012, but early 2012, on exactly and specifically April 23, 2012, during the time he would have been only 39 years old. That is the age that I wish more than anything that he himself would have been at when he released that fucking album of his. And I'm pissed the fuck off that he didn't. And obviously I still love that album of his, and it's a great album. It's not like I'm gonna hate an Eminem album because he didn't release it the year, month, or day that I wish he would have. But I'm just saying that I would have loved it if he would have released that album of his on April 23 of 2012 at the age of 39, because that's exactly when I believe that he should have released that damn album of his. And I am pissed, and I will forever be pissed that he didn't. And I mean, he didn't release any of his albums when I would have wanted him to. None of them. None of his albums that he has ever released in his entire rap career or throughout his entire rap career. None of them, not a single one, has ever been released the year, month, or day that I would have wanted them to have been released, except maybe his Music to Be Murdered By albums. That's maybe the only exception that I would make. But that's about it. And another reason why I think it would have been just so much better if Eminem had released his Marshall Mathers LP2 album in the year 2012 is because that year, Black Ops 2 came out. And in 2010, 2 years earlier, the first Black Ops game came out, video game. And just 2 years after that, in November of 2012, to be exact, Black Ops 2 came out and was released. And there is no denying the obvious fact that Black Ops 2 is a far better and greater video game than the shitty-ass, lame, pathetic, lousy, pitiful, worthless video game of Call of Duty Ghosts, which came out in 2013. And because Eminem was a bitch and he released his Marshall Mathers LP2 album in 2013, which was really fucked up of him, on November 5 of 2013 at the age of 41, one of his songs on that album of his was used to promote the shitty-ass video game of Call of Duty Ghosts. And that song was called, and is called, Survival. And I hate that song anyways, because not only is that a shitty-ass video game, but even more so because of the fact that I find it really annoying that there's a bunch of kids and teenagers screaming or cheering in the background. I don't know exactly what they're saying. I'm pretty sure they're saying something like "go" or something, trying to cheer on Eminem or something while he's rapping. And I mean, it's a good song, but it's a shitty ass video game. And I hate hearing the fans of him cheering, especially knowing that they were punk-ass teenagers. And not just any teenagers, but spoiled, rotten, privileged teenagers who, if anything, probably grew up having their very own gaming consoles and video games as kids, and in the 2010s, probably had gaming computers, or gaming PCs in other words. And even though that's not a good video game, it still pisses me the fuck off that when I want to enjoy that song, it's painful, because then it's like, oh yeah, I have to hear the spoiled, rotten, privileged, cocksucking teenagers who probably, if anything, grew up with their own gaming consoles and video games since they were kids, and then as teenagers were able to buy and afford gaming PCs, which is just unfair to me, who has never had gaming consoles and video games growing up as a kid, myself in the 2000s, or a gaming PC when I was a teenager in the 2010s. Even though I really wanted a gaming PC, I didn't ever have one because I could never afford one. And of course, nobody ever wanted to help me, not to my surprise. But you know what? I would have much rather preferred that song to have been used to promote the video game Black Ops 2. And obviously, it would have been used to promote that video game if only Eminem had done the much better and greater thing, like he definitely should have, and released his Marshall Mathers LP2 album in the year 2012 instead of 2013. A whole entire year before he actually did release that album of his, and also the fact that he would have been 2 whole years younger. That's another thing to keep in mind and consider, is that he would have been 2 whole years younger, even though obviously a year difference for a rap album is obviously, and of course, not that big of a difference, but it is still a difference, and that's what would have mattered most to me, at least, but also the fact that he would have been 2 whole years younger. So instead of being 41 years old, like he actually was when he released that album of his on November 5 of 2013, he would have been only 39 years old, still in his 30s, if he would have released his Marshall Mathers LP2 album on April 23 of 2012, like he definitely should have. And it's just so heartbreaking and crushing that he didn't release that album of his in the year 2012. Because, that would have been such a perfect, great, excellent, fantastic rap album to have even came out in the year 2012. I mean, seriously, how awesome would it have been if Eminem's Marshall Mathers LP2 album would have came out in 2012 instead of 2013? And how awesome would it have been if, say, you were playing Black Ops 2, say you were one of the many spoiled, rotten, privileged, cocksucking teenagers or kids who got to experience playing that video game since it came out in the year 2012. Say you were either like watching the trailer and you heard the song Survival, or say you heard the song Berserk, which I honestly think would even be a far better and greater song to use to promote the video game Black Ops 2. Not that he would have had Black Ops 2 like footage in his Berserk music video, but that the song would have just been like the background of the Black Ops 2 trailer before the video game would have came out. But his song Survival, instead of being used to promote Call of Duty Ghosts, which is a whack-ass video game, it would have been used to promote Black Ops 2, which would have been much better and greater than being used to promote a shitty-ass video game like Call of Duty Ghosts. And obviously, that would have been the case, in fact, if he would have only released his Marshall Mathers LP2 album in the year 2012, like he definitely should have done. And there is no denying that fact, not even for a second. And, you know, another thing that I wish would have been different, and pretty much the last thing that I wish more than anything would have been different about his Marshall Mathers LP2 album, is the fact that he would have been able to release the unreleased Marshall Mathers LP2 song Don't Front featuring Buckshot. The only reason he was not able to release that song on his Marshall Mathers LP2 album, unfortunately, is because of the fact that he wasn't able to get the rights or something like that. But I'm honestly sad that he wasn't able to release that song on his Marshall Mathers LP2 album, because that would have been great. I mean, seriously, it would have been so dope if he would have been able to release the song Don't Front featuring Buckshot on his Marshall Mathers LP2 album like he originally wanted to, but because he wasn't able to get the rights or something like that to the beat or whatever, he wasn't able to, sadly. So those are all the things that I really wish would have been different about Eminem's Marshall Mathers LP2 album. But let me know what you all think in the comment section down below. I'm out.